Back to the booth here at Mythic Championship Cleveland. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe with Simon Gertzen. We're working our way through the draft portion here today. In the feature match area, Maria just said it, we've got one more undefeated player in the field. It's Michael Bonde from Denmark, up against Autumn Burchett, who we saw lose a very close game last round and then win a very not close game in the third game. So they're set. They're all ready. Let's head on down. It's time for round number 10 here from Cleveland. Hello and welcome back to coverage here at Mythic Championship I from Cleveland, Ohio. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Simon Gertzen, and it is time for round 2 of draft 2 here on day 2. Take a look at our featured players on the left-hand side of your screen. That's Michael Bonde from Denmark, plays for Team Snap Cardster and MTG Mint Card. 9-0, and the only player left in the field with such a record. Sitting across from Michael is Autumn Burchett from England, playing for Team Axion now. They are 8-1 currently as well. So 2 of our top seeded players left. Ooh, that does not look like 7 cards for Michael, does it? Maybe Michael's on 6 here. Autumn's going to kick things off, though, with a 1-drop. Gets Panther rolling here, down to 19 for Michael. And a 1 and a 2. You know, there is an aggressive build for Orzhov, and if Autumn has brought that to the table, that could serve them very well.
And we are actually looking at somewhat of a mirror match almost. Burchett on Orzhov, very streamlined, almost your archetypical Orzhov deck, and Bonde is going 3 colors with Azorius and Orzhov combined. But somehow his creature base is not as good as Burchett's.
Here's 10th District Veteran. Not a super high pick or a often played card, but actually looks okay here. Could trade off for either creature.
It's difficult to block Plague White and survive, so a trade is what you're usually happy about.
Autumn with the stare down there. What are you going to do, Michael? Bite the bullet and make the trade. Trigger happens, trades off. Michael takes 1, drops down to 15. Is there a follow-up, though? There was no 3-mana play for Burchett. Is there a 4? No, but there's a 2.
Probably drawn this turn.
A freshly drawn 2, that's right. Imperious Oligarch. And once again, the hits keep coming here for Bonde. A missed land drop and another pretty mediocre card. You can see the low-end part of Michael's deck is not particularly impressive. The Prowling Caracal and the 10th District Veteran are not really what you want.
Also, no access to black yet.
That's right. No 4th mana, no access to black. So Autumn's going to ship in there with the Oligarch. And keenly, they've played the Impassioned Order pre-combat, anticipating that Oligarch to die and gaining an extra life. So good tight play here. But in the meantime, the story of this game is mana. As it often is, when you play 3 colors, getting that 3rd color or 4th mana down in this case is going to prove deadly, as Debtor's Transport hits the battlefield for Autumn Burchett and really puts Michael in a situation where he's basically dead at this point. Let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, sitting in 11 life. I guess it's not impossible. What did Michael find? Well, he did find a blocker.
Yeah, Michael's
Senate Courier, but he's going to need more.
Michael's hope was that Burchett was only holding lands, but that Debtor's Transport on 6 is a critical threat.
Yeah. Autumn lined up what the attack would look like if they attacked with everything, assuming, all right, well, what if you block the Spirit token? You still take 8, which would knock you down to 3. Then they lined up, well, what if I just leave the Spirit token back where there's no good blocks? Perhaps Michael is going to feel compelled even to chump block if that's possible. And they're going to go ahead and attack with everything, it looks like.
The consideration here is whether you want to force through those 2 extra points of damage that you would not otherwise deal.
At the cost of a creature, yeah. And it's land go from Autumn. So perhaps some hope here for Michael, though looking really bad here. Needs something. A fourth land, and it's a swamp. That has to be the perfect top deck there for Michael. Does he have a blocker for the transport? Syndicate Messenger.
Yeah,
Noxious Grudian, though at this point Michael also is considering even a card like Civic Stalwart just because it trades and it's the most efficient way that Michael can use his mana. And that's what's going to happen. Michael has no room to take any cute lines or risk. He needs to be brutally mana efficient, and everything needs to go right from this point on. Down to just 3 life. Does Autumn have any way? I mean, this is the point where any creature interaction, any pump spell, even just more creatures are probably good enough to get the job done for Autumn.
Autumn could attack with all creatures here, all 3 of them, because if the Stalwart doesn't block the transport, then the Courier is chump blocking, so it wouldn't be a terrible trade of resources.
Well, they've decided not to, just the 2 creatures. So the obvious trade here with the Civic Stalwart, and Autumn says, I'll pass priority, you take 1, but the trade does happen, but of course the transport has Afterlife 2. So there's 2 more flyers hitting the battlefield. Looks like Autumn didn't pick up the trigger there from the from the order, but does not seem particularly relevant at this point, as it's really about Michael's life total at this point.
Burchett is out of gas, so Michael has that going for him. He needs to deploy exactly the right amount of defensive resources to stay alive, and then he actually has a chance to turn this game around.
This is extremely close, and we are going to need to see multiple spells here from Michael. He is currently facing lethal. So the question is, does Autumn play around Summary Judgment at this point? And the answer is no, and they're correct. Michael Bonde is going to scoop up his permanence, and that is game 1 going to Autumn Burchett. You know, the mana issues for Michael, just 1 turn too long.
And even when he drew that land, it wasn't like his hand was amazing. It was just
His hand was
medium.
bad. I mean, seriously, some of those cards that Michael deployed there were really fringe playables, often 23rd cards, often in your sideboard. And the level of power that Michael brought to the table wasn't very high, and in conjunction with the fact that he spent many turns doing nothing, just not enough there.
There was a bunch of fighting, not as much cooperation at this first table that we watched. We see that a lot of these decks are lacking somewhat.
Yeah, that was for sure. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more live Magic here from Mythic Championship I in Cleveland. We'll see in just a bit. Welcome back to the feature match area here in Cleveland. We're here for the first Mythic Championship. Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Simon Gertzen. Thanks so much for coming along. Spending a little time on your weekend with us here. Watching, well, the best game ever made. Let's just call it like it is. Live look-in. Slater Claudell's playing against John Finkel. And John is on the Ultimate Guard Pro Team deck here. The Clear the Mind control deck. That's blue and white, primarily blue.
Yeah, probably not the best matchup against aggressive Rakdos decks. You can see that Slater took down game 1.
And John is under significant pressure at this point as well. Slater attacking with the 3 creatures you see there.
Does look like a good block for John.
The Homunculus just gobbling up the 3/2 Blade Juggler does look nice, and John's not exactly at critical life total here, 15, but he's taking 3 now. There should be some good follow-ups here for Slater.
Utility creatures and menace creatures certainly certainly dangerous for this super controlling Azarius deck. Team Ultimate Guard valuing counter magic very highly as well. So that's always something to be aware of. And John actually has mass manipulation in his deck, so maybe he's trying to set up for a turn where he can take over, for example, a 5/5.
He's going to use Thought Collapse here.
I think Claude is doing the right thing here, just getting in there. He has the Vampire to drain John.
Yeah, the Vindictive Vampire is helping the cause, but I will say it's costing him a lot. I mean, he's just tossed away 2 creatures over the course of the last 2 turns.
Yep, but he has more.
This is Goblin Gathering now for Slater. And it looks like he already has one somewhere in his graveyard because he got an additional Goblin.
Nice.
Now you can see why he's not so concerned about throwing away cards. And this is going to prompt a Slime Bind on one of the tokens now from John. Are we going to see mass manipulation from him? Yes, we are. X equals 2. So what is he stealing?
The 2 non-tokens.
The 2 non-token creatures? Sure. This is one of the more powerful swings that you can get in a format.
And he's at 6 then. He has the Vampire from then on.
Yeah.
Even played the super defensive Slime. I like his position from this point on.
Yeah, this looks pretty good for John. It looks like our main table's ready to go, though, so let's head back up to Bonde versus Burchett. And we'll give you an update on John versus Slater when that result comes in. But I agree, that looked like a situation where the board had been trimmed down enough that he was able to stabilize thanks to that huge mass manipulation. What a powerful spell. And we're underway here in game number 2. Michael finds himself down a game after having mana issues in the first game and needing to win back-to-back games to climb back in this. Let's see what Autumn has as far as the curve goes. Well, it's okay. No 1-drop on turn 1. Turn 2, 2-drop, and then a Panther. But once again, Michael's mana base looks like it may be catching up to him. No white mana to be seen thus far. He does have 2 Azorius Guildgate and an Orzhov Guildgate, but we haven't seen them thus far. A lot of basic lands for Michael this time. See if he can find a Plains. No, but it is land number 4 for a Skitteriel, and he can pass the turn. That'll help stabilize the board, but this is where a card like Plague White really shines.
Exactly. It's not really a blocker here.
No.
It trades for a 1 or a 2-drop. Not what you want your Skitteriel to do.
And again, it's kind of the secondary archetype for Orzhov, but there is very much an aggressive Orzhov build available in this format, and Autumn's found it. Michael's going to take all of it. He wants to have some way to use this mana in case he doesn't find white, and Skitteriel does seem like a fine place for it to get in the way of that Plague White.
Absolutely. But
ooh, this is bad news, though, for Michael Bonde.
Autumn is not doing something spectacular here.
She really is, yeah.
It's just, you know, it's those 4 commons, but they have a deck that is just streamlined, consistent.
Yes.
And the sum of its parts are just make everything better. Whereas on the other side, you have Bonde, who has pretty much mediocre creatures, but in a 3-color shell that just doesn't work half of the time.
Right, you need a lot more gold cards. Ooh, there's Mortify, and that's just going to be the game. Michael has to extend the hand, and Autumn Burchett is now 9-1, equals the record of Michael Bonde. That was Michael's first loss of the tournament, but Autumn.
2-0 this draft.
Yeah. And we have seen them play against a lot of mana-impaired opponents, by the way, as well. And, you know, I, though, give credit to Autumn for that, because Autumn has put together a deck that has decent to good mana, simple build, and a bunch of just cards that matter that affect the board. And, look, you want to sit here and toy around with the splashes or the gold cards or something cute, I'll be over here just casting 2-drops, 1-drops, 3-drops, a few decent spells, and just killing you. You know, that this is what you gain from sticking to your guns.
Especially if your 1 and 2 drops have utility in the late game as well, which is true for Death Touch creatures, which is true for Plague White. Ooh. What's that?
What do you see? Oh, Biogenic Ooze. Yeah, that's going to be extremely difficult for William Huey Jensen. He's playing against Peter Ye here, and you need an answer right away.
Looked like a Teemo Reclamation deck to me at first sight, but it's just an RNA draft deck.
It is indeed. Is there a removal spell, though? Not really. So Consume would normally be really good here. It's just that the Ooze brings a like-sized token with it, and that's a pretty easy discard there for Peter. Now, Peter has the mana to pump out more Oozes as well, thanks to that Gyre Engineer, and will undoubtedly do so. Interesting choice, of course, is do you do it on your opponent's turn or during your turn? There's actually a significant benefit to doing it during your turn, because on your end step, all Ooze creatures you have get a +1/+1 counter. Now, if you wait, you will miss that counter, but you can use up mana. You can use that mana for other, instants and things like that.
Especially if you're, for example, holding counter magic to protect your Ooze. That's kind of the perfect reason to pass the turn. You can take a look at his hand here, and you can actually see that Thought Collapse is one of the cards he is representing and has in hand. Actually, quite kind of a tell here. Now that Ye has Thought Collapse mana available, he goes for the Ooze in his main phase.
Right now, William Huey Jensen is up a game over Ye, and I think that we're going to get a game 3. An unchecked Biogenic Ooze is nearly unbeatable, and so far, Jensen has not found the answer for it. And it's probably too late already, right? Another Ooze token produced by Ye, and you're talking about just a devastating board already.
And Ye also knows that as long as his Ooze lives, he's just winning this game easily. So he doesn't have to spend his hard counter magic on something like a Syndicate Messenger.
That is a stacked hand for Ye. Also, look at that. Another mythic rare 5-drop Mesmerizing Benthid in hand, as well as a Thought Collapse. So a great way to protect the situation that Ye has put together here. And yeah, I think this one's just about in the books. Now, there are cards, right? Kaya's Wrath comes to mind. Let's see if Jensen has one.
Oh, he does. Did you know that?
I didn't. No, I'm serious.
It sounded like you were
that wasn't
just
a
setting
setup.
that up.
No, I'm just trying to think of what are the possible ways he could get out of this. Does he really have one?
He does it, but it's he would have to get rid of those counters first somehow.
He's digging for it too. He just used Blade Brand to cycle, desperately looking for that Kaya's Wrath. But, of course, we know, after having taken a look at Ye's hand, that Thought Collapse is looming and probably not going to be an answer anyway, even if Jensen is able to find it.
And Jensen will have a very good idea about that as well, based on how Ye played.
Right, about foregoing those counters. So a solid turn here for Jensen under normal circumstances. Ooh, but he's going to get Ill-Gotten Inheritance quenched. And that leaves room for a token still from Ye.
I'm quite impressed that Jensen picked up game 1 because Ye's deck looks very, very powerful.
Here's some raw power now. Jensen surveys the scene, gives a little eyebrow raise like, wow, that is a lot of oozes on the other side of the battlefield. This is going to be a tough one. Is it time for Ye to start attacking? There is a Death Toucher on the other side.
Trading with a Pestilence Bird is a good trade.
Right.
And you want to close out the game at some point.
So Jensen's just going to block with his Resolute Watchdog on the smallest of the oozes, which is just a 2/2, and just soak up the rest, which is 8 damage. Ouch.
Biogenic Upgrade also looks very menacing.
Yes, it does. All right, end step says all the oozes get bigger, and Jensen really doesn't have any outs at this point. Even with Akaya's Wrath off the top of the library, that would just get snapped off by Thought Collapse. And that should just about do it here. The window has closed for Jensen to find a removal spell for the Biogenic Ooze itself. There is, it is a slow card in that way that, usually you get to make 1 ooze per turn, and if you can kill it before they've made, let's say, the 3rd, and you might be able to find some blocks or removal spells or something to get your way through, but not when it's gotten to this point.
No, had that Consume been a Mortify, would be a completely different game.
Right. But Ye has done a great job of navigating after sticking the ooze and keeping Thought Collapse up at all times, just refusing to open up this board to Akaya's Wrath. So here comes all of the oozes outside of the 2/2 and the OG.
And they are sized in a way that you can't let 2 of them through, so it forces a block. You get rid of the Death Touch creature.
Yeah, take 3 damage. Jensen's going to fall down to 6. It got Resolute Watchdogged.
Ah, okay, sure.
Yeah. The Watchdog chump blocked and then gave his life for the Pestilent Spirit. A swamp off the top of the library.
That's what he does.
Yeah.
Oh, this is
done.
Not enough.
No. Ooze token and an all-out attack next turn will do it.
Ye also, of course, doesn't reveal any more cards from his deck. No need to show Jensen anything here if you can just win with that single Mythic Rare.
Right. And with that particular single Mythic Rare, you can definitely just win. Although this particular attack does mean that Jensen gets 1 more draw step.
Yeah, very, very cautious with the Biogenic Ooze itself. That was probably not necessary if you can attack for lethal instead.
I'm getting my Gyre Engineer in there.
Absolutely.
Lock it, go. Jensen, of course, thinking, wow, I'm getting a lot of shots to try to draw this Kaya's Wrath. But also probably quite cognizant of the fact that that Ye has a counter spell in hand, and that is going to do it for game number 2. But they're going to even things up. And Jensen takes a quick look around. He does have one of his teammates playing behind him. That's John Finkel. Oh, look who decided to join the party here, Simon. Rakdos the Showstopper. Hello, friend. Flip some coins, see who gets to stick around and who doesn't. And it looks like the board as it sits is a pair of goblins left over. for Slater. This is, by the way, still that game that we had checked in on earlier, Simon.
But John on a super healthy life total.
Yeah, sitting at 13, but that life total will not stay that way if Rakdos gets his stick around. That is
how about we
6/6 flying trample.
How about if Rakdos switches sides?
No, 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 no. John, no. Steal all 3 of them? The second mass manipulation of the game. And Slater says, okay, here you go. And he says, you know what? Actually, I'm just going to keep him over here because I'm done. John Finkel with 2 mass manipulations. That game, oh my goodness sakes, is going to pick up game number 2. So our 2 Ultimate Guard Pro Team members going to game 3s against their opponents. Both of their opponents, by the way, playing very powerful Mythic Rares against them. Let's see if they can finish the job.
Huey not on Azorius Clear the Mind. He somehow managed to draft a regular Orzhov deck. Yeah, looks very solid here. Has 2 Orzhov Guild Gates, 17 lands, and yeah, I would say above average power level, but nothing spectacular. It looks like your you know, everyday limited draft deck. If you go 2-1 with this at this level of competition, you've done your job, and with the Kaya's Wrath, you definitely have the chance to go 3-0. Actually, some nice synergies there with the Resolute Watchdog. You can make one of your creatures indestructible before wrathing. That's kind of cool. 2 Ill-Gotten Inheritance, so you can draw out the game and maybe lead your opponent to overextend. Some nice
No, that is good.
Nice things I'm spotting there.
Because Ill-Gotten Inheritance does exactly that. It just it forces your opponent to try to race. It usually means playing out every creature they have, and then you can wipe the board, still keep your Ill-Gotten Inheritance. That is a nice combo. Interesting. It looks like Jensen decided to be on the draw here. Did you see that? He sat there and watched while Ye looked at his hand, but Jensen had the choice there. So Jensen choosing to be on the draw with this Orzhov deck.
In this particular matchup against Simic Splashing Red. Most scary card very likely being that Biogenic Goose. Yeah, I can get behind that. If you're the Orzhov removal heavy deck with a mass removal spell.
This chippy little attack here from Jensen with the Panther. The funny part is that Ye is actually deep in the tank and gonna make the trade as well. This Oroform Hybrid, generally speaking, a much more valuable card down the stretch, but Ye says, you know what, sure, you got it. You wanted the trade, you got it. In the meantime, Resolute Watchdog hits the battlefield, and then a Pitiless Pontiff for Jensen. Pitiless Pontiff, very annoying for these green decks. Oh, are you serious right now? Wow, that Mesmerizing Benthid on the battlefield straight away.
One turn too late, dealing with the engineer there.
That's right. Jensen set up a pretty cute little situation. He played a Footlight Fiend, then sacrificed it to the Pontiff, which lets him do 1 damage to any target, and he kills the 3-drop there, the Gyre Engineer. But as you mentioned, the damage was done. It ramped out this Mesmerizing Benthid so quickly.
Maybe, could he have done that in Ye's upkeep, though? You give Ye 2 mana to use in his upkeep, but you get the Pontiff.
The Death Touch.
Yeah. Maybe you save 4 damage that way.
Yeah, it does open up the possibility of a pump spell, I guess, but I kind of with you on that. Take that risk, right?
Sounds fair.
Yeah, agree.
Maybe it is really not about damage. It's not a matchup that's about racing. Just 4 is quite a bit. Like, it's quite a chunk of your life total. Pitiless Pontiff, of course, another creature that's quite nice with Chaos Wrath.
By the way, we're going to need to see a reaction here from Jensen of some sort because he attacked with the Pontiff. Ye said, I'm going to block with my Combine Guildmage and then play Fairy Duelist to shrink down your Pontiff from 2-2 to 0-2, which is pretty strong play here from Ye. And now Jensen looks like he's deep in the tank about what he wants to do about this. That Pontiff can be a very big deal going late into the game and brick walling a lot of the types of attacks. Wow, and Peter just gets to gobble it up and keep that 1-2 flying Duelist on the battlefield as well. So this is not going well for Jensen. He follows up with Noxious Grudian, but look at the board state for Ye here.
I am, and in a sense, he's sad because he just lost a creature, and Ye didn't invest a spell or a permanent to do so. On the other hand, now that Noxious Grudian is most likely not getting Fairy Duelist, so you actually have a blocker for the Banthed, which would otherwise meet the same fate. I think you just have to accept that against your deck with the Orzhov Death Touch creatures, Fairy Duelist will always do something that is annoying.
Mm-hmm. Also interesting to note here from Jensen's perspective, good news and bad news. Good news is his hand's all spells. Bad news is he's missing land drops.
This is absolutely a game where I could see Chaos Wrath just turn things around completely.
Let's see if he's got it.
No. What I also don't know is if Ye saw the Wrath in game 1. So that definitely makes a big difference in how Ye is going to approach the game.
All right, well, Tim Willoughby is down on the floor as our sideline reporter, meaning that he's keeping an eye on all the matches. And he did see it in game number 1.
Might have been one of the reasons why Huey could win that first game. And also, I'm looking at the deck list, maybe incentivized Ye to bring in some more counter magic. Maybe he wasn't running all of that in the main deck. Actually, he was. Quench and Thought Collapse already main. But that's usually a good reason to bring in some extra answers.
Precarious position here for Jensen. He's still stuck on 3 mana, but he's actually not under tremendous pressure at the moment. It's just 1 in the air. In the meantime, a Brush Strider is going to hit the battlefield here, but the Combine Guildmage added a +1/+1 counter to it, so it's actually a 4/3. And there's land number 4 now for Jensen. Syndicate Messenger is the only play he can come up with here, though.
But that is a play that will mean Fairy Duelist can't attack unless it grows by 2 counters. It's also nice that even if it dies in combat, you get a 1/1. Jensen is drawing out this game, but Ye has also drawn into a Quench at least, so Chaos Wrath is not just going to resolve no matter what.
Yeah, the Quench actually looks quite strong here given Jensen's mana woes.
Biogenic Upgrade on flyers could also be something that Ye is planning to do. Otherwise, it's not a great card against Death Touching ground creatures.
Yeah, you really do want some type of evasion. It doesn't have to necessarily be something as good as flying. Could just be trample, but some way to push through that extra damage. And they're just going to trade off ground creatures here. It looks like Ye's going to move that counter off, though. Might as well get some value on the way out. Throw it on the Duelist. That is important as well, because the Duelist can now block the Messenger, and with 1 more counter can start attacking into it. Let's see what Jensen has lined up for this turn. He finally hit that 4th mana last turn. And it's a carrying imp, fine.
Yeah, not bad. Actually, potential double block options for the Fairy Duelist at some point.
Jensen at only 4 lands for these last couple of turns has done a good job of stabilizing this board. That very early Benthed could have kind of run away with the game. It's big. It's a 4/5, and that, you know, turn 3, turn 4 type plays.
It's not biogenic. It's not biogenic ruse.
Right.
Right. It's not this kind of threat level that would have already won the game at this stage.
Speaking of threat, that was Thrash threat. Thrash was cast there to kill the Pitiless Pontiff while the shields were down. And you mentioned the potential for a multi-block, and that is exactly what we have here. Jensen takes a look and says, do I really want to throw these? He could make it into a 5-6. And he's only got 5 power lined up currently.
It looks like Ye almost got Jensen there with playing this quite quickly and saying, look, I'm going to...
Well, Jensen's going for it anyway.
Yep. Wants to force the issue. Doesn't want to just take 4 here, allow the Command Guild Mage to do what it wants to do, basically.
It's also interesting because this does use up a lot of Ye's mana, although the second one for Quench really does kind of put a wrench in the works here for Jensen, especially if his plan was to draw Kaya's Wrath there. But he's got Consume, so he says, look, if I can force you to use up a bunch of mana and then put this on here, now I can get rid of this Benthet. Of course, it's not going to work because of Quench, but you can see the fruition of the line there that Jensen took by making that triple block, even knowing that it wasn't going to work fully.
Yes, and he didn't lose all that much, right? It wasn't as if that block was completely devastated and he lost all of his creatures. Right. He only lost a Carrion Imp in the process.
Exactly. But now he's back to a bad place here because this Mesmerizing Benthet is now crashing in for damage once again. Really needs to see that Kaya's Wrath, it feels like. And
that's what the whole last few turns have looked like to me, especially drawing that Quench with Consume, so that you can hopefully top that Kaya's Wrath at some point, and then because you've only drawn 4 lands, you're actually advantaged going into that post-Wrath late game.
Jensen's been stuck on mana, and the result of that has been a slower progression of the game overall, and then on top of it, he's kind of on that 1 spell per turn limitation. Ooh, and here's Prying Eyes from Ye on end step to really propel him into the late game. So now, not only is he leveraging the fact that he has more lands to get more cards, he can do 2 spells a game or more expensive spells, and this is really starting to slip away from Jensen at this point.
It is, but Ye has not found anything with that Prying Eyes.
No.
There was just a bunch of lands, basically a pocket of lands on top of his deck. Of course, it's good that he went through that, but it's not, well, it's not a Biogenic Ooze, it's not a Thought Collapse, so Jensen definitely still in this.
Six mana for Biogenic Upgrade, and you mentioned it before. He can start throwing it on, at least on the creatures, and then he can even really grow that Benthet even further. He's going to put 3 +1/+1 counters on up to 1, 2, or 3 creatures, and then they all get doubled. So he went 1/1/1, but that made 2 on the Benthet and doubled that to 4, and then of course double 1 on the others is 2 each. So a lot of counters.
Yeah, and I like this because he's punishing the fact that the messenger is tapped, and he is not giving Jensen too much more time to find Kaya's Wrath, which he knows about. So even though it's scary, now of course Kaya's Wrath basically takes down the Biogenic Upgrade with it. You also don't give Jensen more time to draw it.
Yeah, that really needed to be Kaya's Wrath right there. Can Jensen even survive another turn?
I think he has one more turn, yeah, and that could be huge.
Looks like he's going to have to settle for Vindictive Vampire past the turn. So if he can survive this turn, he may have one more chance to top deck the card he needs to get the job done. Although let's see what Ye finds here, because he has Growth Spiral, so that could turn into anything. What was it? Code of Constraint?
Looked like Code of Constraint, yes.
Which would be the game, would it? Block 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? No.
It wouldn't be the game, but it would put Jensen in a really tough spot after the Wrath, because Ye is the first to play a creature again, and he has been holding back Skullgator.
Which could easily close out this game. So is there any point to even casting the Code of Constraint right now?
I think the main reason to cast it is because you get to see another card.
Right.
You get to draw one more card, and that's potentially a Thought Collapse to close out the game. Maybe you have another bounce spell or way to push through damage.
But also keep in mind that he could just do that on Jensen's turn as well. Like, if now there's a Kaya's Wrath on the stack, then you could cast it to draw the card if the card draw is really what you're going for.
But then you've dealt a bit less damage, right?
That is true. Well, Jensen does survive. He blocks with his Syndicate Messenger. He needs Kaya's Wrath pretty much right now. Looks like it was another ill-gotten inheritance there, Simon.
Yeah, so now he needs to play a Chump Blocker and hope for the top deck again. Or I think he has a removal spell in hand.
He better, because he just passed a turn back.
But that probably means that Code of Constraint is now definitely the play because it's a lethal. Almost guaranteeing lethal, no matter what Jensen has.
So here comes Code of Constraint, and that should earn the victory here for Ye. In comes the team, and that's the hand. Ye's going to pick this one up and improve to 9-1. What a start for him. And Jensen picks up his second loss of the tournament, so still very much in it, but just could not find that Kaya's Wrath when he needed it. And instead, it's Ye that picks up the victory here as players go to de-sideboard their decks. Boy,
two dire engineers.
Yes.
Mesmerizing Banthet and Biogenic Ooze.
Yes.
That's pretty absurd.
That is correct. All the things you just said are true, Simon, and I would not be surprised to see Ye come out of this pod as the winner with a deck that powerful. I mean, contrast that with some of the cards that we've seen already in the feature match area. You know, perfectly playable cards, but nothing on that level. I mean, my goodness sakes. The Ooze, again, one of the better cards in the format, full stop. And when you play it a turn early, it's even better. And then you can use the mana from the Gyre Engineer later on as well to make more Oozes.
We also saw Thresh Thread. We didn't see a Frilled Mystic and the Incubation Incongruity, which are also in Ye's deck. So that is really a powerful Simic deck.
Oh boy. I see a lot of red and black cards on John Finkel's side of the battlefield once again. It looks like he even had to steal a card that he actually had already put a Slime Bind on because it would represent a lot of damage. The Fireblade artist, he slowed down the damage output from it attacking and then had to steal it back the other way because it would have just started sacrificing a bunch of creatures and throwing them at John. So pretty funny sequence there from him.
Yeah, and that's a scary card to play against when you are this Azorius deck because you want to go as late as possible, and a single Goblin Gathering can be 4, 6, 8 points of damage.
That's right. Boy, but this deck from Finkel is something else. Yeah, you can see that he's already cast Mass Manipulation this game, and he's also cast Clear the Mind, so it's no longer in his graveyard. It's hovering around in his library somewhere.
And mostly he is, I think he has like double the amount of lands and a full grip. So he's sitting there with his counter magic. He knows that he just needs to not die on 7 life. Oh, beautiful.
Can we update that to 9 life there, Simon?
That was, I believe, his second pick. After first picking Mass Manipulation, he got Dovin's Acuity, which fits perfectly into the Ultimate Guard Pro Team draft strategy for this weekend, we have to say.
Yeah.
Which is, if you can get Azorius Clear the Mind control decks, that's what you should do.
Look at that grip of cards from John Finkel. He's now up to 11. It could be up to 13 if he wants to replay the Acuity. He does not. He's going to play Sky Tether. And he just wants to empty out a couple of cards because he's discarding the hand size. He has so many at this point. 2 Mass Manipulation in this deck, including the ability to reshuffle them back in with Clear the Mind. This deck is just an absolute machine. I love it. He's going to win this match, too, it looks like. It's going to take something pretty special from Slater to get out of this, especially now that John's life total is going higher and higher. You know, you start to think about Electro Dominance or cards like that to kind of steal the game late, and that is now out of range as well, as this Dovin's Acuity is just going off. Arrester's Admonition, your Goblin token, pick up my Dovin's Acuity, count my hand, it's 8 cards, play the Acuity, draw a card, go up to 15.
Yeah, and at this stage, even something like Rakdos the Showstopper is not potent enough to turn this around.
No, this show will continue. In fact, I think that if if Slater drew that, John would actually be happy because it would give him a win condition for the mass manipulation that he just found again as well. So this is just getting completely out of hand now. And John has this locked up. He has a Thought Collapse in his hand as well. And, you know, a player of John's caliber, he just knows, look, I know exactly what I need to counter and what I don't. And by the way, this is mass manipulation. He's counting up his opponent's creatures, and he's going to just steal all of them. Every single one. Mass manipulation, your team. John can actually kill Slater with sacrificing all of his own creatures to his own Fireblade Artist at this point if John wanted to. This is incredible stuff from the best player of all time and certainly the best limited player of all time on top of it.
This would be the Rakdos turn, the Rakdos the Showstopper turn.
Yeah, you're right, it would.
Then you have to win all your flips and maybe we have something.
Oh, he didn't sacrifice anything to the Fireblade Artist. And in comes the team. This is going through the motions, though, for John Finkel.
Yeah, that Slimebind is on the artist, right?
Yes.
It got moved around a little bit there.
Yes, it did. As you can see, there's a lot going on. I mean, this looks closer to a commander board state than it does to a limited board state. And John's kind of just quickly going through the motions here. There's plenty of time to do it, but I think that it's because he knows and Slater knows that this thing's over. Slater's just, you know, being patient and having him go through the motions. But in the meantime,
John is like, sorry, I'm winning by so much.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And John Finkel wins the match 2-1 in, I have to say, very impressive fashion. You know, watching John play is always impressive, but come on, this is ridiculous. Don't know what John's talking to the judge about right now, but at any rate, the victory goes to Finkel. As it so often does. You know, I was having a chat with Paul Rietzel, and he looked up, he calls them trophies, right, which is kind of, you know, winning a 3-0 on Magic Online would earn you a trophy. They tracked them for Pro Tour / Mythic Championship level. So if you win your pod, you get a trophy. And they track them for the Ultimate Guard Pro team, and John has almost double the next player. And, you know, the next player at this case isn't, you know, somebody who's new to this. These are grizzled veterans of this level of play. So really impressive stuff.
When John came back and just won Pro Tour Kuala Lumpur, I believe it was. That was just amazing to watch. He demonstrated that he just knows limited in and out.
Right, that was sort of him starting his second or third career and saying, no, I'm here to stay. Like, there will never be a time when I don't understand this game. There will never be a time when I'm not the best player, and he wanted to establish that. I mean, I don't know if he wanted to, but he certainly established that, and he just continues to be, even to this day, one of the best players in the game. And he showed us why there, casting multiple mass manipulations and finding his way to the victory. That was the last match, however, in our feature match area. Quite a bit coming for the rest of the day. We've got one more round of limited to bring you before we cut back over to standard and make that final 5-round run to the top 8. That's where things get really intense later in the day. This is kind of the worker part of the day, right? Nobody really knows exactly what the top 8 looks like, who's in contention. This is where you need to pick up these critical wins in limited. You know, even though there's 5 rounds of constructed and 3 of limited, most of the players think that the biggest edge is to be gained in these limited rounds. One more of those to go before we transition back to standard. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, though, we'll have the last round of limited. Don't go anywhere.